convoy of the Central Reserve Police Force, India's largest paramilitary force, on the state's, Jammu and Kashmir state's main highway. It was heavily guarded, so it's been seen as a big security breach. There were about 2,500 personnel who were being moved from the southern city of Jammu to Srinagar. There were 78 vehicles in the convoy. And the attack, like you said, is being claimed by the Pakistan-based Islamist group Jaish-e-Mohammed. And so far, 44 people have been killed in this attack. Journalists on the scene say there were body parts and blood scattered around about a 100-meter stretch off the highway. It's the first suicide bombing in decades in the state, and also the worst security attack to take place during Prime Minister Narendra Modi's tenure. The previous high-profile attack took place in 2016 when militants stormed an army base in the town of Uri and killed about 19 soldiers. The last major car bombing in the state took place in 2001, and it was also claimed by Jaish-e-Mohammed. 40 people, including 3 suicide bombers, died in that attack. So this is the worst suicide bombing in a decade in the state of Kashmir.
Worst in a decade. Why now?
Well, it's lots of speculation about why now. There's been some speculation. It's blowback against tightening of grip of the Indian government in the state. India has long accused Pakistan of sheltering and supporting militants who cross the Indian-controlled territory to carry out these attacks as part of a 3-decade-long insurgency against Indian rule. Delhi has blamed Pakistan, for example, for the previous attack, and Pakistan has denied involvement. Militants are either pro-independence or pro-Pakistan. And Jaish-e-Mohammed, which has claimed this attack, is based in Pakistan, and it's led by a radical cleric his name is Masood Azhar. And last year, United States pushed the UN Security Council to designate him as a terrorist, but that move was thwarted by China. The number of militants are decreasing in Pakistan, in India, in the Kashmiri state. It's much less than it was in the peak of the insurgency in the 1990s and 2000. But the recruitment of people is on the rise, recruitment of militants. And this has been aided by the fact that seems to be a lack of real political process to address the grievances of Kashmiris, especially young people who don't have a lot of opportunities, not a lot of jobs, and they see greater violence in the state from the Indian state. The alleged perpetrator in this attack is a Kashmiri, and that's quite worrying because the trend reflects that there's a growing radicalization amongst local youths in this militancy. Previously, it was mainly Pakistani and Afghan fighters who would come across the border. And just a little reminder that the violence in general has increased quite a bit in Kashmir. And 2018 was actually one of the bloodiest years in a decade. The death toll for militants and security forces rose. There are about 324 people from the militants and security forces who died, about 100 civilians who also were killed in last year.
When you take in this news from the capital, Delhi, where you are, Suriya, do people see this as the quagmire of this disputed region that's on the border, or as simply India versus Pakistan?
It's quite complicated. There are a lot of people, of course, human rights groups, lots of activists who talk about the fact that, this is becoming a bit of a quagmire. There's lack of real political solutions in the state. And then, of course, there's the hardliners who believe that the militancy must be crushed, and by that, there isn't a lot of this separation between the civilians and the militants. And to be honest, over the last few years, there's been a lot of blurring of the lines, and particularly now, this is interesting. It's an interesting time for this attack because it's just ahead of the Indian general elections, which is a few months away. Prime Minister Modi, who's seeking re-election, he's condemned this attack in strong words on Twitter. He's previously taken a very tough stance on national security, and we'll have to wait and see how he responds. But national security is a big deal for the BJP, so we can expect him to take this very seriously. He campaigned in 2014 promising a hardline approach to militancy in Kashmir. Only 10 days ago, he was in Kashmir and he said he would break the backbone of terror in the state. And with elections around the corner, campaigning is starting in full force. He's likely to face a lot of pressure from his Hindu nationalist base to respond strongly to this attack.
Surya Banerjee, many thanks.